The night was colder than any before. Winter had truly come, and with it came whispers of death. While the world looked to Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen as the heroes who would save them from the Night King, no one expected that Arya Stark, the girl who had once been lost, broken, and forgotten, would be the one to face the greatest enemy of all. But what if there was more to that story? What if Arya and the Night King had always been connected in ways no one saw coming? Imagine this. Every step Arya took, every lesson she learned, every scar she carried, was not just about her survival. It was pulling her toward one final moment, her strike against the Night King. But why her? Why not Jon, the supposed hero, or Daenerys with her dragons of fire? Why the youngest Stark daughter, the one who lived in the shadows? The answer might be found in the shadows themselves, in a secret bond that tied Arya to the Night King long before they ever faced each other. Some believe Arya carried something inside her, something cold and sharp, a piece of destiny written the day the Night King was created. Thousands of years ago, when the children of the forest stabbed a man with dragonglass and turned him into the Night King, a mark was left not only on his body but on the world itself. The Starks, the family who built Winterfell and guarded the North for generations, were tied to that ancient magic. Maybe Arya, being a Stark, carried that mark too, an invisible thread pulling her toward him. When Arya trained with the faceless men in Bravos, she thought she was learning to become no one. But what if she wasn't just learning tricks of disguise and stealth? What if her training was pushing her closer to death itself, giving her a bond with the very force that made the Night King so powerful? The many-faced god she prayed to was a god of death, and the Night King was the ultimate form of death in Westeros. Was it possible Arya and the Night King were both champions of the same god, meant to find each other in the end? Think about the way Arya fought. She was silent. She moved unseen. She struck when no one expected her. Death followed her wherever she went, just as the Night King brought death to everything he touched. They were mirrors of each other, one small and hidden in the shadows, the other tall and mighty in the open. But both were unstoppable killers, shaped by powers that most men could not understand. The strange part was the Night King's reaction. When Arya leapt at him during the battle at Winterfell, he turned in time to catch her by the throat. He wasn't surprised by Jon, who screamed and swung his sword with fire. He wasn't afraid of Daenerys, who sent dragons to burn him. But Arya made him look almost human for a second. Shock, recognition, maybe even fear passed over his cold blue eyes. But why would the greatest monster in history look at a young girl like that? Unless he had seen her before. Could it be that the Night King knew Arya in some way? Some say he saw visions just as Bran did. If Bran, the three-eyed raven, could see the past, present, and possible futures, then maybe the Night King could too. Maybe he had seen Arya in his visions many times before, always appearing at the moment of his death. That would explain his expression. He was not surprised by her presence. He was surprised that the moment had finally come. Others believe the Night King recognized Arya because she carried part of his power within her. Every Stark had something cold about them, a sense of winter in their blood. But Arya had gone further. She had become a servant of death, giving herself to the faceless men, leaving behind her old identity. She had walked so close to the darkness that when the Night King looked at her, he saw something of himself. A reflection. A rival. Maybe even his end. But if Arya was always tied to him, was she truly free when she killed him? Or was she only fulfilling the destiny that had been carved for her long ago, when the Night King was born and the first Stark built Winterfell? If so, Arya's choice was never really hers. It was fate, waiting to be played out. There's another clue hidden in the dagger she used. The Valyrian steel blade had a history stretching back across wars and betrayals. It was once used in an attempt to kill Bran. It passed from hand to hand, Littlefinger, Catelyn, Bran, until finally it reached Arya. The dagger's journey looked almost like it had a will of its own, pulling itself into Arya's hand for that one perfect strike. Some say it wasn't Arya who killed the Night King. It was the dagger, finishing a destiny older than her. She was just the chosen hand. Still, Arya's path cannot be ignored. From a child chasing cats in Winterfell to a faceless assassin in Bravos, her story was filled with death and survival. Every kill she made, every list she whispered at night, was shaping her into the one who could do the impossible. Even death itself seemed to bow to her. When the Night King fell to her blade, it wasn't just the end of him, it was the meeting of two forces that had been bound together from the start. Arya and the Night King were never strangers. They were two sides of the same coin, destined to face each other in the dark. And yet, questions remain. Did Arya truly defeat him, or did she only take his place in some hidden way? The gods of death never give gifts without a price. If Arya was their chosen champion, then killing the Night King may not have been the end of her story. It may have been the beginning of something even darker, something no one in Westeros was ready for. When the Night King shattered into ice and dust, the world cheered. His army fell, and the long night was over. Everyone hailed Arya as the hero of Winterfell, the savior who ended a war that had lasted thousands of years. But deep inside, Arya did not celebrate. Something stirred in her, something she could not explain. She had been touched by death so many times before, but this moment felt different. When her blade pierced him, she felt more than the cold breaking. She felt a piece of herself slipping away with him. It was as though their bond had not ended but had only changed. Instead of being tied to the Night King through fate, Arya now carried something of him inside her. Was it his power? His curse? Or his unfinished purpose? She did not know, but she could feel it in her heart like a shadow that refused to fade. Some believe that Arya inherited the Night King's connection to death itself. The moment she struck him, the balance shifted. Death needed a champion, and with the Night King gone, Arya became that champion. It would explain why she left Westeros after the war. She told her family she wanted to explore the lands west of Westeros, but maybe it wasn't about adventure. Maybe she was running from what she felt growing inside her. Think about it. Arya was never the type to settle in Winterfell like Sansa, who became queen in the north. She was never meant to rule, and she didn't crave peace like Jon. Arya's blood had always burned for more danger, more discovery, more death. When she killed the Night King, it might not have been a victory at all. It might have been the start of a darker journey, one that would take her away from her family forever. What if, in some secret way, the Night King lived on through her? His army may have crumbled, but magic that old never truly dies. It changes form, moves to another host, hides in the shadows until it is ready again. Arya's coldness, her detachment from normal life, her obsession with death, all of it pointed to her becoming something more than human. Perhaps the Night King's fall was not the end of the long night, but only a pause until Arya herself would one day rise as something new. Some theories go even further. They claim Arya didn't just kill him, she absorbed him. That's why his face looked so strange in those final seconds. It wasn't fear of dying. It was recognition, as though he knew she was not killing him at all. She was becoming him. His spirit, his memories, maybe even his purpose flowed into her with that strike. When his body shattered, his essence had to go somewhere. Arya was the perfect vessel. That would explain why she moved like a shadow during the battle, vanishing into thin air, appearing where no one expected her. People said she was fast and skilled, but what if something more was at work? What if, in that moment, she was already drawing from his power? There is another strange detail people forget. Arya had been trained to kill kings. The faceless men taught her that every life had to be paid with a price. To take a life of great power, one had to be prepared to give something in return. The Night King was no ordinary life. He was the oldest, most powerful being in the world. To take him down, Arya may have given away her soul without knowing it. Her decision to sail away could then be seen as an escape, or maybe even exile. She did not want to put her family in danger if something dark began to grow inside her. She wanted to hide it, control it, or maybe even test it in the lands no one had seen before. She told her siblings it was about discovery, but perhaps it was really about survival, theirs and hers. Let us look at Bran. As the three-eyed raven, Bran saw everything. He knew Jon's truth as a Targaryen before anyone else. He knew the outcome of battles before they began. Do we really think he did not see Arya's future? Do we really think he gave her the dagger by accident? It is more likely that Bran saw the connection between Arya and the Night King long before the final battle. He gave her the blade not just to kill, but to inherit. In Bran's strange way, he may have guided her toward a destiny no one else could see. And yet, Bran never warned her. But maybe because he believed she had no choice. Fate was already written. If Arya was meant to replace the Night King, then Bran could not stop it. He could only watch it unfold. His silence might not have been coldness, it might have been fear. Fear of what Arya would become. Think also of Arya's list, the names she repeated every night before she slept. Her list was death's whisper in her ear. It kept her alive, gave her purpose, and pushed her into darkness. But when the list was almost complete, when most of her enemies were dead, something was still missing. Killing Cersei or even the Mountain could not compare to the Night King. He was the final name she never said out loud. The name she was born to whisper. Death itself had marked him for her. Now imagine Arya far away from Westeros, standing on the deck of her ship as the waves crash around her. She looks west, but in her heart, she is still tied to the cold north. Perhaps she dreams of blue eyes staring back at her. Perhaps she wakes at night with her hands shaking, as if they remember the ice that once held her throat. She tells herself she is free, but the bond is not broken. It may never be broken. Some legends say that magic cannot be destroyed, only moved. The fire of dragons, the power of the children of the forest, the strength of Valyrian steel, all of it survives through time. The Night King's death was no different. His spirit may have slipped into Arya at the moment of his fall, lying quiet in her chest until the day it decides to rise again. When that day comes, what will Arya be? A savior once more? Or the enemy the world will fear even more than the Night King? The most chilling part is this. Arya always said, "What do we say to the god of death?" Not today. But what happens when the god of death is inside her? What happens when she can no longer say no? The North will remember Arya as a hero. Songs will tell of her courage, her leap through the darkness, her dagger that ended the endless night. But perhaps those songs are only half the truth. Perhaps the real story is just beginning, a story that does not end in Winterfell but sails across the unknown seas. A story where Arya Stark, the girl who killed the Night King, becomes something the world is not ready to face. Because death is patient. Death never dies. And if Arya carries even a spark of the Night King's essence, then one day, far away from Westeros, death may rise again, not in the form of a blue-eyed king, but in the form of a Stark girl with a dagger in her hand and shadows in her soul. Arya's story didn't end with the Night King. It may have only just begun. Drop your theories in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more.